Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to Week in Nintendo. If you're new here, awesome, welcome. So am I. I'm just getting rolling with all this. And if you followed me over from my Instagram page, thanks for joining me here. If you're familiar with everything I do over there, it's really just a lot of pretty Nintendo pictures and talking about upcoming games that I'm excited about. But I realized that I spend so much time staying up to date on the latest Nintendo headlines that I thought it would be kind of cool to distill those down into a weekly format, kind of go back through all the biggest announcements from the past week, and then hopefully get these shows up Saturday mornings so you can pour yourself a big bowl of cereal and get all caught up on all things Nintendo. And this week happened to be a particularly busy one when it came to announcements as well, so figured this would be a great place to start. So without further ado, please sit back, relax, and let's go through this week's Nintendo news. So on Monday, we had Nintendo announce that the Switch saw its best sales week ever over Thanksgiving week, selling over 830,000 units between November 24th and November 30th, bringing the US total to 17.5 million units sold, which are some pretty impressive numbers, especially when you consider the fact that this year's Black Friday bundle was the exact same as last year's. It was the Switch with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe packed in for $299. So it is a great deal. You are getting a great game for free. But the catch was the Switch model included in this year's bundle was actually the old Switch and not the better battery life revision that we saw quietly released this year. So I do feel bad for some of the parents out there who probably had no idea that the better battery life revision even exists, and they just assumed that buying a console on Black Friday they'd be getting the latest and greatest. But clearly that didn't matter, as we had multiple outlets reporting that Nintendo Switch was among the most popular items sold during Black Friday overall. Walmart actually just quietly released a Nintendo Switch bundle that includes the Mario Red Joy-Con, which up until now have only been available from Japan or in the Mario Odyssey Switch bundle that was released in October of 2017. So, in my opinion, this is a little better looking bundle than Nintendo's Black Friday bundle. And of course, this came out immediately following Black Friday. But with this bundle, you get the Nintendo Switch, the Mario Red Joy-Con, a red Switch case, as well as $20 cashback rewards through Walmart. So you're not getting a game for free, but you are getting the new, better battery life Switch revision in that bundle. So if I was picking up a new Switch for the holidays, this would be the one I'd be going after. And as of the recording of this video, it still seems to be available on Walmart's website for $299. On Tuesday, we found out that Nihon Falcom would be bringing The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3 to Switch in spring 2020, following the success of Ys 8 on Switch, which, if you've been following me for a while, you probably know I'm a giant Ys fan, and I absolutely adored Ys 8 on Switch. It's just a wonderful JRPG, super tight gameplay, really memorable characters, and a great little story. As long as you can get past the kind of not so pretty visuals, I just think there's a criminally underrated game underneath it all. And while I'm not super familiar with the Trails of Cold Steel series, it seems to be in a similar vein to Ys, as just a classic JRPG with really memorable characters and tight gameplay. And just like the PS4 release, which came out in October of this year, there will be a special edition and demo available around launch when it comes to Switch. Wednesday, we had Nintendo Switch firmware 9.1.0 release, which brought along some much needed improved stability, as well as fixing a glitch that caused the Joy-Con color to not show up properly in the Switch menu. So even if you were attaching a pair of colored Joy-Con, that wouldn't be reflected in the menu, and they would just show up as gray. So those were really the two biggest patch notes from the update. Definitely not a big deal, but it is nice that that functionality is fixed for all those colored Joy-Con collectors out there like myself. Also on Wednesday, we learned that 6 new games would be coming to Nintendo Switch Online on December 12th, which was a welcome surprise since we weren't really sure what the cadence of releases would be like following the release of the Super Nintendo games. Nintendo had kind of said, we're no longer going to be releasing 2 games per month, and we'll kind of just be releasing bundles going into the future, and haven't really said much since. So really nice to see these games coming through so soon. We're getting 4 games for Super Nintendo, which include Star Fox 2, Super Punch-Out, Kirby Superstar, and Capcom's Breath of Fire 2. Star Fox 2 being the most notable of the bunch, in my opinion, because up until now, that game has kind of been locked on the Super Nintendo Classic, and obviously previously unreleased prior to that. And then for NES, we're getting Crystalis and Journey to Silius. And kind of immediately after that, Nintendo also announced that they would be discounting the NES Joy-Con that you can only get through Nintendo Switch Online by 50% through January 10th, 2020. So that brings the cost down from $59.99 to $29.99, which is probably what they should have been priced at to begin with. So if you've been holding off on getting those, but you've been kind of interested, now would be your chance. Then on Thursday, we finally got an update to Super Mario Maker 2 with 2.0.0, which brought a whole bunch of new enemies and items and the Master Sword, which is super cool, which allows you to play as Link. And this really reminds me of the awesome amiibo functionality we had in the original Mario Maker, where you could play as your favorite characters when you scanned in an amiibo, and it would be, they'd be rendered in 8-bit style, which was just really cool to see. With this new update to Super Mario Maker 2, there's even more functionality added to Link. You can shoot arrows, you can obviously use your sword and throw bombs. There's also some added changes to the chorus music and boss music, as well as the sound that when you die. So that's all really great. And then in addition to that, we also got Pokey the Cactus and Spike as enemies. And then for items, we got P-Block and Frozen Coins and Dash Blocks. So a lot of really cool updates. It was nice to have an excuse to jump into this game because I kind of fell off after the flurry of late summer and fall releases. It does feel like this update maybe came through a couple months too late, and it would have been nice to see this come through a little closer to launch. And I think that about does it for all of the current Nintendo news, but I'd like to close this show out with a little segment I'm calling 20 Years Ago Today, which should hopefully give you a glimpse into what my younger self was up to back in my Nintendo Power subscriber days. I couldn't find a whole ton that was happening this week. 20 years ago in 1999, Donkey Kong 64 was actually released in late November, so I think I was definitely playing through that collectathon. And then I also found that Cruisin' Exotica from the Cruisin' series came to arcades in December. I couldn't find the exact date, but came to arcades in December 99, and then was released on the Nintendo 64 in the following year. But it just got me thinking about those old Cruisin' games. The Switch is a little light on racing titles, so I would love to see some of those classics come ported over. And I also don't know what's happening with Cruisin' Blast, which is in arcades now and actually looks like a pretty decent entry in the series and kind of seems like a no-brainer to port over to the Switch. So I'm not sure what's happening there. But yeah, there you go. 20 years ago today, I was playing Donkey Kong 64 and maybe getting a chance to try Cruisin' Exotica in the arcade at the mall. Oh, how far we've come. So that does it for this week. If you stuck around through all that and liked what you saw, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. I'm going to try and do about 2 videos per week, one of them being the Week in Nintendo show and the other being more of a product or game review, and see if we can get a little something going here. So until next time, have a great weekend. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you guys in the next one.